Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings from Indonesia. My name is Tatas Broto Sudarmo. I'm representing EURAXESS ASEAN. A warm welcome to all of you today's 1.5-hour webinar on European Research Council, ERC's grants. We believe that this webinar is a timely opportunity for our researcher community to get a comprehensive overview of the programs. We are delighted to have two speakers with us today. Our expert speakers, Dr. Odeta Limaj. So she is the scientific officer at European Research Council. After her PhD in physics at Sapienza University of Rome, she has been a postdoc at Boston University and Ecole Polytechnique de Lausanne. And in 2016, she joined the European Research Council Executive Agency, working on starting, Consolidator, advance, and synergy calls. She will provide an overview of ERC key finding opportunities and open calls and help participants find out which grant scheme is best suited for their research project. And then the second speaker, we have an ERC grantee, adjunct Professor Novi Quadrianto from Indonesia. Novi is a machine learning scientist and adjunct professor at Monash University, Indonesia. She is also a professor of machine learning at the University Sussex, UK. Leads become Severo Coa Strategic Lab on Trustworthy Machine Learning in Spain, and is scholar at the Alice Human Centric Machine Learning Program. And in 2019, Novi was awarded 1.5 million euro grants by ERC for 5 years project on developing Bayesian machine learning models and algorithms for fairness and transparency. So thank you very much. Dr. Odeta and Professor Novi will join us later on and for helping our researcher community to better navigate through the program requirements on the submission process. So our program today is as follows. This will start in-depth info session on the ERC grants, which is led by Dr. Odeta, and then please post your questions in the chat and we will address them in our question answer session at the end. I will monitor and keep track of the questions. So without further ado, I will pass the time to Dr. Odeta to brief us in detail.
Hello, thank you very much, Tatas, for the kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, I guess, for you. I'll just take it easy, maybe a couple of minutes, because I see more people joining and we are still below the expected number. So since we have time, if you don't mind, I'll just, chat a bit and introduce very slowly what's about to happen in the next hour and a half. So as Tatas explained, the purpose of this webinar is that, you can find all the information online about ERC. There's everything online. But it's maybe all the notions and having firsthand experience from someone who works inside that institution, so all the calls, and someone who actually got the grant, hopefully will give you much more than what you can find online. So the idea here is to give you information and guide you without replacing the guidelines and offer you the possibility to ask whatever comes in mind. So don't be shy, write whatever you want to ask in the chat. If we don't have time to address it, I encourage you to write directly to me. I will put my email address in the first slide. And if I don't know the answer, I'll redirect you to whoever might have it. So I'm sure that we will have the chance to address, hopefully, and clarify all the doubts. Novi should join us in 40 minutes. We all have a kids duty, so we had to make a bit of a puzzle with the time schedule and so on to make this work. So it might be that we start directly with the question and answer, or Novi speaks and then we do all the question and answers afterwards. I will start to share my screen and then slowly start. So now you should be able to see the presentation, and now it should be full screen, right? I see Tata's nodding, so I assume that's okay. Good. Okay, so let's get this this started. Now, you're supposed to be hundreds of people behind those screens, and I don't see any of you. So I'll try to keep it as lively and not boring as possible. We will have a couple of quizzes here and there, which you might also not participate, but is a way to keep some sort of interaction beside the chat and to make this remote setting a bit more more appealing. So as I mentioned, the idea, what I would like to do with this webinar, and what I usually do when we have this sort of events, is that I give you a brief overview of what is the ERC, not with the idea to do advertising or propaganda. That's not what you are here for. You are here for to get information, to get money. So I would like to give you information on ERC that is relevant for you, so you get a general idea that can help you better do your job in preparing the application. And then what I would like to do is to guide you step by step in how to prepare your proposal. So, okay, I need to start. Where should I go? What should I look at? What am I supposed to do? I see that someone raised their hand, but I'm not sure in such a big setting you can unmute yourself and speak. So I would advise that maybe you write in the chat. I see Trung Treo. So please write in the chat, because I'm not sure we can, with such a huge number, have an oral exchange. So I was saying the idea would be to guide you step by step, and hopefully by the end of this webinar you will not be completely in the darkness and have more or less an idea of what is expected of you and where to start, how to navigate this process. And I have a couple of slides in the end to talk a bit more specifically about ERC and ASEAN. As you can imagine, the statistics is not huge. We don't have a huge participation from national researchers from ASEAN countries, but I think there's still some information that for you might be relevant. As I promised, icebreaker, just to see if you are there, if you are awake. Probably yes, because it's afternoon for you. For me, it's morning, so I still need a couple of coffees. But Tatas will help us with a couple of quizzes, which actually are, as I said, icebreakers, and for me to know better who I'm talking to. So you will get a pop-up window in your Zoom, and if you don't mind, you just click on something and we'll see the results. The first question that you will see is how much you know about ERC. The idea is, have you ever heard about ERC before? Not that you need to know all the rules, but do you have a general understanding of what we're talking about? Which sort of grants are you looking at? Or is it an acronym that for you makes no sense and someone told you, just go and listen because maybe we can get some money there? So the idea is just to get a bit the feeling, and hopefully maybe help me calibrate a bit better.
Yeah, now we have
So it's
72% of the participants.
Yeah, and it looks like 50-50. Okay, so this is I would say the hardest outcome ever, because some of you know, some of you have, I guess, no clue. So thanks for answering, that helps me. So I will not give anything for granted. Maybe those of you who know will get a bit bored in some parts, but I'm sure that you will find interesting information. But I will redirect you to more detailed information during the webinar. So it's 50-50. Okay, that's good feedback for me. And the second question that that we have for you, just to, again, to get a feeling, who are you? So are you a PhD or a postdoc, or someone who is doing research but still needing to establish somehow an independent research line, an assistant or full professor, or are you more in the, I don't know, funding agency, private sector, administration, or other? This to get a bit, also here a hint of also what you would expect from this event, right? So from a first sight, maybe Tatas, you can share the results. It looks like the majority, even slightly, is are professors, so people who maybe would be at the forefront to be interested in applying for ERC, and then PhDs and postdoc students that maybe still have a few years before being at the maturity level to apply for an ERC, and a not negligible component of people in the administration, private sector, so other who maybe might be supporting researchers and apply for grants. This is really good, so thanks a lot. This gives me a bit of an idea of who you are, and help. Maybe I can close this window, Tata, so you can close the poll, and we can go to the next slide.
Yes, I already closed the polls.
Okay, so if you still have the window, please close it so it doesn't bother you during the vision of the slides. So as I said, what is ERC? So I start usually with this slide, not because I want you to know the notions, not because I consider useful for you to know how the European Commission works. This is not, I would say, in your immediate interest at this point. But the immediate message that I want to give you from this slide is that it's a good moment to apply. Why am I saying this? You might know that the ERC that is established within the European Commission works like many other funding entities in the Commission in batches of framework programs. So there was FP7, in jargon, Framework Program 7. There was Horizon 2020 that went from 2014 to 2020, and then Horizon Europe, which is where we are now, that goes from 2021 to 2027. And here in vertical, you see the budget in million euro. And the message, the take-home message from this slide that I want to give you is that we are here. And here means that we have the highest budget ever, except the last year of Horizon 2020, and things will go better and better. So this and the next couple of years are a good moment to apply, because we'll be getting more and more budget from the Commission to fund more and more proposals. So this is the only message that I think it's encouraging for you to know, and gives a bit of an optimistic view of the years to come. But what is ERC? So as an entity, what I think is important for you to know is that ERC is quite, let's say, an unusual, if you wish, entity in the European Commission, because it has a governing body, if you wish, with quite a lot of independence, which is the Scientific Council. The Scientific Council is composed of 22 professors, scientists, active, well-known leaders in their field, including Nobel Prizes and people that had very important positions in their field, who are active in research. So they are not people in administration. They are active in research, and they know exactly what's going on. They have a vision of where research is going, and they decide on the most important aspects of the strategic planning of the ERC. And I would say the presence of the Scientific Council, what we have seen is that has been one of the major reasons of the success that we have witnessed for ERC in the latest years. So ERC Scientific Council members are scientists like you. They know what's going on. They know your life. They know what you need. So they make the decisions in your best interest to try to make this as useful as possible. And then you need somebody who implements all this stuff, right? So together with the Scientific Council, we have the executive agency. So the ERC executive agency, ERCEA in short, which is where I work. So this is an agency where people working for the European Commission, most of the time coming from PhD postdoc experience. So again, people like you who have witnessed that word. And we run all the calls behind the scenes and make the whole process go on. We do not make an assessment because all the projects are peer reviewed. But so we hire panel members, scientists, to come and assess your proposal. So we don't make any decision, but we just make the machinery work so that scientists like you, recruited for a certain amount of time, can assess the proposals that you submit. What is that you can find in ERC. So I'll spend a couple of minutes on this slide. What are the sort of grants that you might be interested in? We have 3 individual grants, so-called. So in short, they are the starting, consolidator, and advanced grant. And the naming comes from the fact that they are based on your academic seniority. So starting grants are open to people between 2 and 7 years from their PhD date, consolidators from 7 to 12 years after their PhD date, and advanced grants, there's no limit in terms of PhD, but you need to show that you have at least 10 years of scientific achievements in your field. So these are individual grants where you as a single PI can apply and ask for money to form your team and anything, but it's you as a PI who had the idea. And you can ask budget for maximum 5 years. And the maximum for each grant goes a bit increasing. So for starting 1.5 million, for consolidator 2, and for advanced grant 2.5 million euros. So quite consistent, like quite big grants. We have also other 2 grants that I will not cover too much in this presentation, but feel free to ask questions if you wish. One is the proof of concept. These are small grants of 150,000 euros that you can get if you have an individual grant already, and usually help you bridge the gap with the private sector. So let's say you discover something amazing in your individual grant, and you think it could be relevant for the industry, but you need to do that further step to bring it to a TRL that is acceptable and so on. So with the proof of concept, you can do that. And then we have more cooperative grants, which are the synergy grants, where you can have a group of 2 to 4 PIs, principal investigators, one of which can be based outside Europe or associated countries. So this is quite interesting for you because you can stay where you are and still be one of the principal investigators of synergy. And the budget is 10 million euros maximum for 6 years. Now, a question that, again, breaking the ice. So I said that the maximum for this grant is 1.5 to 2.5, but there is a possibility to ask for additional 1 million for the individual grants and up to 4 million for the synergy grants. And my question to you is, can you guess for which reason this can be asked? So Tatas will share with us the quiz, and maybe that 50% that is quite familiar with ERC will know the answer. The rest maybe will need to become a bit more creative. But what do you think? So the options are, you can ask for extra budget because you are moving from where you are to a country in Europe or associated countries where the living costs are very high. So you really need extra money. This is too expensive. Or simply because you move from outside Europe to member state or associated countries, then you can simply for that reason ask for 1 extra million. Or because you need a lot of people to do that research. So you need, I don't know, 10 PhD, 10 postdocs, and so it is justified for you to ask this extra million. What do you think might be the most reasonable reason to ask for this extra million, which is quite a lot of money? We have already some convergence, I would say, to some answers, and there is no clear indication in one direction, I would say. So we have around 20% of you saying, I'm going to a country that's very expensive, so it's obvious that I need more money. Maybe there is some renormalization of the cost, I don't know, but it's normal that I can ask for money. Around 30% says that if you move to an associated country or a member state, simply because of that, so you were out and you moved there, you can ask for an extra million. And other people say, I need a lot of personnel, so I can ask for that. And it's actually the majority, is 51%. What is the correct answer? So the correct answer is the second one. So the around 30 people out of you got it right. And you can imagine it was also a tricky question, right? I put these questions this way because that's what the most interesting option for you, I would say. So if you see the reasons why you can ask for additional funds, actually the one that was in the quiz correct was one of the 4. So what does it mean? So you can ask for 1 extra million if for startup costs. So you are, for example, in Singapore and you move to France for your ERC grant, you need to establish a lab, right? You need to do everything from scratch. You need to settle. All this comes with costs. You can ask for additional 1 million. No question answered, no question asked. There are other 3-4 reasons to ask for additional money, which is access to large facilities. So imagine that you need to, I don't know, based on my field, you need to systematically go to a synchrotron when you need to pay to get some access. So you don't have bean time, but you need to pay, or access to clusters for highly demanding computing tasks. You can ask for extra money. Major equipment in P3 and condensed matter field, everyone asks for a dilution fridge. So we have tons of people asking for dilution fridge, non-contact atomic force microscopy, everything. If you need an equipment that is quite expensive, either you buy it as a whole or you buy all the pieces to build it yourself, but it's quite huge, extra money. Or in general, if you have field work, because imagine I'm from physics, but we have social sciences and humanities, we have earth scientists, maybe you need to go to Antarctica to do some expedition and so on. If you have a major experimental or field works, again, you can ask for extra money, but this doesn't include personal costs. So that's why the third answer of that quiz was not the correct one. Now, okay, all very nice, very interesting, sounds appealing, but what do I need to do? So what is that you want from me, right? In one word, excellence, which sounds, I don't know, to me, it has always sounded like a buzzword, you know, one of those cool words to say out there because it sounds fancy, but actually nobody understands what's behind. The fact is that it's really about excellence. What does it mean? ERC takes pride in funding bottom-up research. So there are no priorities that ERC imposes from above, or there are no priorities that ERC identifies as important. There are other funding schemes for this, very important, very crucial, but ERC does something different. ERC trusts that you know what to investigate, trusts that your curiosity, trusts your intuition, trusts your drive. So you choose the topic, but you need to be good at it. Your proposal needs to be good, so excellence in the research project, and you need to be good, so excellence in the principal investigator. What does it mean, excellence in the research project? The proposal should not be incremental. So additive, incremental research, doing a bit more than what I did so far, not good enough. You need to have a proposal that has the potential to be groundbreaking, that you are ambitious, you are getting a lot of money, dare to dream. But as I always say, don't go completely nonsense. So you need to have not full assurance that it's going to work, but some elements in your scientific approach that tell the evaluators, look, this is feasible. I mean, I've done my homework. I know that this probably can be done. And then excellence in the principal investigator. So you have to show that you have some creativity, some new ideas, and the intellectual capacity to run this grant, and not that you are still under the protecting wing of your supervisor and doing what other people have suggested and following lines of collaboration. This is really your idea and something innovative you came up. One thing that is interesting, and maybe those of you who know ERC can appreciate this more, since 2024, the Scientific Council, so the governing body of the ERC, has given explicit mandate to give more weight to the research project than to the principal investigator. This doesn't mean that the principal investigator is not important, but the message here is what matters is the idea. And then the PI should be assessed with respect to their ability to run that project, not because of how much prestige they have in the field, or maybe they are a big name, big professor, super fancy, a lot of funding. They need to show that they are able to do it, in your opinion. But what comes first is the idea. And the reason for that is really to support ideas wherever they come, and not only and always to the usual suspects. So to give more weight to the science. Now, why should I apply for an ERC grant? What we have identified as main advantages, talking with several grantees and people who have applied, is that you can choose a topic. You can do basically whatever you want with whoever you want. So you get the money, you can hire whoever you want. And you have true financial autonomy for 5 years. The tricky thing that I've also witnessed in research is that You spend more time writing grants to survive in doing research rather than doing the research itself, which is extremely frustrating. And that's not what you're supposed to do. So what we heard from many people is that with this amount of money, for 5 years, more or less, you can stop and be like, oh, good, I have the money, now I can actually do the science. And I've seen this as one of the major advantages that you can see. You can negotiate with your host institution. So you choose to go to a certain institute and tell them, look, if I win the ERC, I want to come to you. This has to be done before submission. I say, yeah, fine, amazing. Okay, but I'm gonna bring you, I don't know, 2 million euros. So, can we negotiate that I get the lab big enough, and then I would need some access to cryogenics and maybe the teaching duties. How can we make this work? So you have some leverage to negotiate with the host institution because you're bringing a lot of money to them. So it's in their interest, and then this will make your life easier. You can attract top team members. We have witnessed that ERC is seen a bit as a seal of excellence, of prestige. So people are more encouraged to join an ERC team when looking for a PhD or postdoc. You can bring these grants everywhere in member states or associated countries. What happens is that you win an ERC, you were applying with a university A. Then you win the ERC, you didn't even sign the contract yet, the grant agreement, and then university B says, look, I'll offer you, I don't know, an associate professorship if you bring your grant here. And then this and this and this, why don't you come? And I said, well, actually, these are better conditions. And then you move the grant before even starting in the previous institution. So this is totally flexible. And you can do it how many times you want, as long as it makes sense. It can be disruptive, to move you from one place to the other, but it's perfectly feasible. And usually, if you have an ERC, you tend to do good research. So you tend to apply for new grants, more money comes, and it's a virtuous cycle. Last of our quizzes, and then I'll leave you alone. So the next question that we have for you is a bit about some prejudice that are out there. It's a bit more technical, if you wish, with respect to the previous questions, but still, just give it a try. I don't know if Tatas, you have the poll for us.
Yes.
Yes, I see it coming. Thanks a lot. So the question is, in your opinion, what is the average success rate, let's say, for a starting grant? So, meaning we have a certain number of submissions, how many in percentage, how many of them get funded? Are we talking about 5%? Are we talking about 10%, 15 or 30, 1 out of 3? This is a bit to get an idea and also maybe to calibrate with respect to other funding agency you have experience with. And I also gave you a small hint at the beginning saying that this is related to prejudice. So most probably the answer is something that you wouldn't expect. But anyway, okay, I don't want to give out the answer. I see that there is some distribution going on. So only 10% of you approximately says it's 30%. So no, it's not that good. So it's not 30%, but the majority of you, almost 50% of you, says that the success rate is around 10%, 1 out of 10 of the proposals being funded. 27% says 5, which is quite 1 out of 20. But the correct answer, guessed by around 20% of you, is 15%, and actually even more. So for starting grants, on average, 15, 18%, so 1 out of 6 gets the funding. And this is always surprising for people when I give this sort of webinar because I had no clue. They thought that it was much, much, much harder to get an ERC grant. Of course, the success rate goes down and down as you go to Consolidator and Advanced. Starting Consolidator may be comparable, but Advanced is a bit lower and Synergy also a bit lower. But usually these are for more advanced people who maybe also have more funding, but usually the young people starting Consolidator, we're around 15%. So the reason why I put is that it's not as bad as you may think. So keep that in mind when you are extremely pessimistic about applying. Good. Now, after this long introduction, you might say, Odeta, you promised us to tell us how to do it. Let's dive into that. Hopefully, I gave you enough reasons to consider really applying. So step by step, you think, I want to apply for an ERC. First thing, you're going to say, oh, come on, this is pretty obvious. I know, but it's still valid. There are all the information that you need on our website. And I promise, it's not a page where you look at the page, you get lost and say, what is this? I have no clue where I need to click. What are these documents that are 500 pages? I have no idea. That's not the case. I see that Novi also joined us, so I think he will be able to give you first-hand experience about the fact that there are information that you need to gather, but it's humanly feasible. So it's done for you to help you. It's not this big chunk of documents that you get completely lost. So what I would suggest you, and Novi will comment more about this as with his first-hand experience, is get familiar with the funding and tender portal. The funding and tender portal is the portal where you actually need to submit your proposal. And once you submit, you can resubmit and resubmit and resubmit again until the deadline. So don't ever do this thing that you leave it for the last half an hour when maybe the server is overloaded and you don't even have a copy of your proposal in the system, and then you miss your chance. Put something, maybe you'll do the final touching at the end, but get familiar to it so not to freak out at the very end when you are short in time. There are some important documents that you would need to read, and I'll get to that in a second. Talk to your institution's grant office. So either in the university where you are or in university where you plan to go in a member state or associated countries, get in touch. Most of the time, they are familiar with ERC, they've done it in the past, they have a very good research office, and they can guide you through all this, saving you a lot of time and hassle. Talk to ERC grantees. You can find easily who they are on our website. I think Novi will mention this. If they are in your field, maybe you met them in conferences and so on, don't be shy. It is not an invitation to spam them, but science is about networking. So reach out and talk to them. Maybe they will be willing even to read your proposal and give you feedback. Contact us. So we have a functional mailbox. It's called an email address with behind several colleagues for every call. So if you have a question, please do write, because they do answer. It's not that your email is lost there and you get an answer after 2 months. Whatever, I mean, my PhD date is this. Is this correct? I have a doubt about that. Should I upload this? Do contact them and get in touch with prospective collaborators. If you plan to collaborate with someone, get in touch beforehand so to have their agreement that they are on board. All the links that you might need, as I said, are in one page. So I was encouraged and asked to put the links here. But basically what I did is that I went on this web page. This is an example for the starting grants, because it's, I think, the most relevant call for you that is coming. And if you go there, and you can see that in the European Commission, you need to authenticate and put passwords for everything, because you need to be very safe. This is the website you get. So for starting grant, this is if you go to European Research Council, apply for a grant, this is a starting. And you start scrolling. Who can apply? Can I extend my eligibility window? It's 2 to 7 years, but can I go for longer eligibility window? The answer is yes, under conditions. Check them. Host institution, how does it work? The team, how much can I ask? Blah, blah, blah. You can scroll this and you find everything, but the important things are here. If you click here, you go to the funding and tender portal. So as I said, the portal where you submit your proposal. Time frame. Okay, I submit in mid-October is starting, then when am I gonna hear about the step 1, the step 2, final decision? What's the timing? I need to plan. You find it here. Past evaluations, you find more here. The work program is basically the yearly Bible of the ERC. So you open it, it's around 40, 50 pages, and it's really the scientific council talking to you and telling you, we want this. So it cannot be more straightforward. And it's a more general document. While for you, if you want to apply to this call, the inflow for applicants is really a step-by-step guide to walk you through the whole process. And I really invite you to look at it and not to leave it for last minute. Once you do, maybe you write your proposal, you put everything there, and then you realize, oh no, there's a page limit. Oh no, there's a template. Oh no, I should have done this. Don't do it backward. And then there's a lot more, including information on the panels, and you will understand what this means, of the past calls. So you will see who were the evaluators of the past calls. Okay, so these are all information that is there for you to use. So you're really statistics, list of selected proposals. I really encourage you to have a look at it. And then the rest of these links, I just took them from that page. Okay, so I would say I put them here. I think you will have access to this, but really refer to that page. For Consolidator is the same, for Advanced is the same. Now, you're like, okay, I have all these documents, and now I have to decide, do I want to apply? Like, am I ready? Some rumors or some people say, okay, look, for starting, you can apply between 2 and 7 years from your PhD date. Do it on the 7th year. So you are more senior, you will be stronger than the other principal investigators, right? But then what you fail, if you fail in that 7th year, you go to the next batch and say, okay, maybe then the success rate will be lower because I'll be competing in the next window and the others will be stronger than me. So there's a lot of doubts you might have. So what we did, we looked at the data, right? Not go with the sentiment, go with the data. And the data tell us that there doesn't matter. So what you see here, these are the number of grants, the bars, and these percentages are the success rate with respect to the years since the PhD. So from 2 to 7 in green are the starting grants. In orange, from 7 to 12 are the consolidator. You see a bit of extra grantees here because with the eligibility window, you can maybe apply a bit later under certain condition, and then in blue, advanced grantees. And then you see data become really noisy because we have less statistics towards these extreme parts. But what the take-home message here is that the success rate, on average, in this window of time where we have more data, is relatively flat. So it does not matter if you apply on the 2nd or the 7th year. And actually, it might be good if you apply early on. Why? Because you apply here, maybe 3rd year, you fail. If you fail, let's say badly, you might have some resubmission restrictions. So you cannot apply the year after, and then you come back here. But what happens is that you got feedback, expert feedback, and you're still in the starting window. So don't be shy. Data support the information that it doesn't matter when you apply after the PhD. What is the second thing you need to think about? Choosing the panel. So ERC is organized in such a way that, as I said, we don't have priorities like, I don't know, you need to investigate raw materials or cancer or quantum computing. No, it doesn't matter. You choose. But for logistics, we had to organize teams thematically. So we have 3 domains: life sciences, in short is called LS, physical sciences and engineering, P, and social sciences and humanities, SH. And inside them, there are panels. So 9 here, 11 for PE, and 8 for SH. And each of each panels is a thematic, let's say, bubble. Inside the executive agency, there is a team of scientific officers like me working in each of these panels for all the calls. On the other side, there are the evaluators that work in each of these panels. So for example, to make it a bit easier, now they'll be starting 25, right? I'm in the P3, so there is my team organizing the whole call, and then we will have the starting 25 P3 panel of experts, around 15 people from everywhere in the world, that will be the one making the decisions. And again, this is an information you can find on our website. We disclose the names of all the evaluators once the calls are closed. So what I mentioned is that you need to choose your panel, because that's the bucket where your proposal will end up and will be evaluated. Choosing the panel is pretty important. You will see when you go to the work program, you will see all these panels and each of them has some keywords. And for example, you might have, how do I put it? So for example, in condensed matter physics, we also have soft matter and we have biophysics. But then you might have some biophysics also in LS. So your question might be, where do I need to go? I have a biophysics proposal. So do I go to the physics people or do I go to the life sciences people? It's up to you. Think about your audience. So think, who might appreciate this more? Is my biophysics more on the, I don't know, the cell and the mechanical properties and then the physics going on, or is it really medical aspects? Gene transcription, I don't know, whatever. Think, who might like it more? A life science person or a physics person? And also check the proposal that we have funded in the past. Again, you find it on the website to see which of those funded in the past aligns more with what you want to do and in which panel that was. choosing the right panel is quite important. One is the reason that I mentioned, and also because it defines where it will be assessed. And almost always we respect your choice, so we keep it in the panel where you put, unless you did an obvious mistake, really like you apply an astrophysics proposals to a life science panel, or the panel doesn't have the expertise to assess it. Maybe you thought you chose the right one, but it would be unfair. Then the two panels that might be involved in this transfer talk and try to do what is best in the interest of the proposal. Some people say choose the panel strategically, because if you go there, you have more chances of being funded with respect to going in the other one. This is absolutely not true, because the budget, the available budget, is distributed between panels depending on demand. So panels that have more, we get more money. Panels that have less, will get less money. So the overall success rate will be the same. So there's no strategy in that sense. Once you choose the panel, you are also asked to choose some descriptors. Either ERC descriptors, so there are some keywords, well-defined keywords for each panel, and you can choose among them up to 4, and some free keywords, so free text that you write. This will be an indicator for us to understand if you are in the right panel, and also helps us to figure out which one of the experts in our panel are best suited to assess your proposal. Okay, so choose them carefully, but keep in mind that there are 2 rumors. I don't know if my window is making this, okay, not visible, good. So one is the panel descriptors that represent ERC priorities, meaning that if ERC has a panel on, I don't know, materials engineering, it means that we'll fund more proposals there and considers that important. Not true. These are just working stuff. So just keywords to help us work better. The more cross-panel descriptors I indicate, then my proposal looks cooler, more interdisciplinary, and they will like it more. No. Panel members do not care. The evaluators will not look at these descriptors. It's really just for us to get an idea of what we are looking at and to whom to assign it. How does the evaluation work? So the evaluation is organized in 2 steps, but you submit everything in one go. But we run it in 2 steps. In step 1, you submit all the proposal. We define some sort of assignment to the experts, and we give these proposals to them remotely. So everyone in their place assess a portfolio of proposals, write a review, and they read in this step 1, part B1 of your proposal. I'll come to this later, but that's basically an extended synopsis of 5 pages where you give the main gist of your proposal and your CV. They should be convinced of the groundbreaking nature, feasibility, and your ability to do it. Once they finish this, they all come to Brussels and they discuss all together. And maybe they even change their mind with respect to what they wrote in the review, because some doubts were clarified. And based on this discussion, peer review discussion, they decide who goes to step 2 and who is rejected. They can give 3 grades, A, B, or C. C, it means this is really not at the level of being a valid proposal right now. It's immature. You need to work on it. And this needs to be approved in every work program. But usually, if you get a C at step 1, you have 2 years resubmission restriction, meaning you have to stop the following year, the one after, and then you can come back in 3 years. So it's quite harsh. If you get a B, the proposal is good. There is something there, but one of the tick boxes is missing. So either your idea is not as groundbreaking, or really nice idea, but you didn't convince us that it's feasible, or we are not convinced that you can do it. In that case, you need to stop for 1 year. So the year after, you're not coming back, but you can come back in 2 years. And then the A proposals go to step 2, so to the second phase of the evaluation. Now, this is a bit for the experts about ERC, but the novelty is that since we had some proposals that were oversubscribed and had basically unbearable amount of workload, a limit was introduced of maximum proposals that can go to step 2, which is up to 44. If you reach this number, the additional A proposals will be still rejected. So the A not invited, we call them, they are still rejected, but they do not suffer any resubmission restrictions. So they can come back right after the following year. But unfortunately, this time they were not as good as the ones that went to step 2. In step 2, what happens is that every panel member goes back home. They read the remaining part of the proposal, the part B2, the budget and everything. We also hire, let's say, ask for remote reviews from experts all around the world. We call them the external reviewers, that have been decided by the panel members. So the panel members during this meeting, they say, I think this person would be really good to read this one. Oh, I would like to hear from this person the opinion. So we send a lot of spamming to these poor researchers, asking them to do a review remotely. These external reviewers provide their review, but they don't come physically to Brussels, of course. But what happens is that they are so spot on that their review is quite invaluable. And during the panel meeting, what happens, the panel members will meet again in Brussels. They will read the reviews of these experts. They will interview you. So you will connect remotely in WebEx. You will get question and answer. Maybe you'll do a short presentation. And then there is the final decision on whether to fund the proposal or not. I went a bit fast, but if you have questions, again, don't hesitate. What is it you need to prepare for your application? There are some more administrative parts and some more scientific parts. So administrative part, we call them part A and annexes. I will not spend time on this because this can be easily figured out with your research office, and it's really on the administrative part, information on your institution, ethics, your PhD certificate, and so on. What is relevant, I think, for you that I can talk about is the scientific part. So part B1 and part B2. They are submitted as PDF. Part B1 is the one that is read in step 1. Part B2 is one that is accessible in step 2. And what are they? The first one contains the abstract, explanation if you have a cross-panel that is relevant for you, meaning maybe you are in between two panels, you can indicate that. The extended synopsis of maximum 5 pages, and then CV and track record of the PI. There is a limit in the number of pages. References do not count for this limit. Part B2 contains the more extended scientific proposals, where you really go into the details of the methodology and the funding idea. Evaluators have access only to this. They don't see any of this. So if you, for example, attach annexes like reference letter from some very fancy professor, they will have no clue, they will not know it, okay? Now, I need to write the proposal. What is this about? Part B1. We provide some templates. You are not obliged to use it, but it's recommended that you use it as much as possible because it helps the reviewers to have a better view of the proposals. If they have something completely out of the ordinary, it might be a bit disruptive for them. You will report your papers, explain what is your contribution there. So we invite our experts to not base their assessment only on, okay, this person has nature, it means that it's an expert PI, very good, fine. The Scientific Council has endorsed the DORA agreement, so the Declaration on Research Assessment of San Francisco. So we encourage our panel member to go beyond the simple bibliometrics, because we know the bibliometric H index can be tricky, are field dependent, are not really indicative. So we ask them to go beyond to really understand what your contribution is to papers, but help them to do so. So if you report a paper, say, I did actually this, I did that, I contributed like this. Okay, so they have a better feeling. Explain the publishing habit in your field. So maybe you are in a lab where the supervisor always wants to be in every paper in the author list all the time, even if they did nothing. We know, unfortunately, this can happen. And this can look really bad, because then the evaluators would say, this person is not independent, always publishes with the supervisor. Or maybe the author list is put in alphabetical order. Explain that so that people are not left with the idea, this person is always in the center of the author list. Maybe they didn't do much. So help them anticipate what their doubts might be. Convince them that you are at the forefront in your research field, that you are not simply following, that you have some creativity there. And describe any other activity that can indicate scientific maturity. You have organized workshops, conferences, you gave invited talks, you took some initiative in your university to establish something, do so, help them. If there are gaps, don't hide them. They will notice. So bring them up and explain why there are those gaps. There is a gap of 3 years not publishing. Look, there was COVID. I'm an experimentalist. My lab was closed. I couldn't do anything. I was on maternity leave. I had a long-term illness. Give them the means to properly assess your CV. One rumor that is out there is that you will never get an ERC if you don't publish in high impact factor journal, so Nature, Science, and so on, and if you don't have a high H index. So I can tell you this is not true, but then you wouldn't trust me, you wouldn't believe me. So what I did last time was that I really digged into the H-index of the PIs in the last call that I led in starting 24, and I checked the H-index distribution of people who were funded. Okay, so this is a number of applicants. This is not like relevant statistics, right? So it's not that you can infer general statement from this, but I think you need to touch with your hand what I'm saying rather than simply trust me. So we are talking about people from 2 to 7 years after PhD, and people who were funded had an H-index anywhere between 7 and 19. And I would say, with all the prejudice that also I might have, I would have not considered 7 a high impact factor, or 8 or 9. And yet these people were funded. Of course, these are isolated cases, but it's a systematic thing. So this is just to show you that don't wait to feel good enough to try, that you risk losing a lot of time. When writing the part B1, your CV, what is it you have to think about? Have I shown my scientific leadership? Or after seeing my proposal, they will be left with the impression that I just did whatever my supervisor was telling me without really doing anything independent. Am I able to work independently? Imagine that they need to give you 1.5 million euros, potentially 2.5 if you are a starting grantee. They need to trust that you know how to handle this and that you will not be lost in the management of this grant. Am I internationally active? It's always a plus if you show that you could establish some network of collaboration. Maybe you spend some time here, you tried this new technique, and then you gather that. Show some proactiveness, right? If you can, it's not a requirement, but for sure it looks good. And what I would invite you to look at, you will find this in the website, what are the questions that the evaluators need to answer? So these are the questions they need to answer. Try to be smart and think, I need to help them to answer this and this and this in an easy way in my proposal. So they don't need to dig out this information with a lot of pain and with the other 30 proposals they need to assess. Make their life easy, help them answer this question. So be clever in that sense. You know what are the questions they need to answer. More on the CV and track record. This is a novelty since 2024. So the Scientific Council decided to have a more descriptive CV. And the idea was exactly like what I was mentioning in the past, before, to go a bit away from defining a person based on their numbers, but really give them the possibility to explain why their profile is relevant. And in this context, you can give an indication of up to 10 research achievement and peer recognition. So what do you think that you have done that makes you appreciated in your community? This means that papers can be some of them, but for example, maybe you establish a database that a lot of people are using, or maybe you created, I don't know, a research cluster in your institution that attracted several networks. You intervened in the APS meeting. I don't know, whatever you think that if you see this on somebody else, you actually think, wow, this seems like a good person. Valid PI. So describe this with a factual short narrative. And as I said before, provide context, add information, career breaks, diverse career paths. Maybe you were in the industry, so maybe you don't have the usual path of, I did a PhD, the postdoc, and then assistant professorship, associate professorship, full professorship. Maybe you did something else. Help them appreciate this context and this different career path. This was about the CV. About the research project, again in B1. What are the questions you need to ask yourself? Is my project new? As I said, incremental research, not good. Do I go beyond the state of the art? Read the literature. Don't reinvent the wheel. There is no limit to the references. To do your job, many things have been done in the past. I know that we are overflowed with the information, but show that you have done your homework and don't come up saying this is state of the art, nobody has done it. And then you realize that the reviewer said this was done in the 70s by blah, blah, blah. Doesn't look good. Why is it important? So why now? Why me? These are the usual questions that usually you are asked, but it's a valid question, right? So, okay, if you say it's so important, why in all this century has never been done? Maybe a new technology is available, or there is a new discovery that became available. I don't know. Just show it. Do I have an hypothesis? Do I have supporting evidence? As I said, you need to show that it's feasible. So if you have some preliminary data, show them. If you have some back of the envelope calculation, simulations, do show them, okay? Is it timely? This is linked to before. Why was it not done in the past? Is there any risk to it? So ERC is asking you to be ambitious, to dare. So of course there is risk. If there is no risk, they will tell you that you are being too cautious. So it's normal that there is risk. Risk is good. Actually, in the past, ERC was taking pride in funding high risk, high gain research, but don't hide it. So show it there, say, I know that this might not work, but I thought of a plan B and I could do this or that. It's true that this might go wrong for that reason, but I've tried this and actually I could solve it. So propose alternatives, don't hide it under the carpet. Show why you are the perfect person to do this and show that you know your competitors. Again, do your homework and give a realistic picture of your collaboration. So maybe you know how to do everything, but you don't have expertise in one thing. Show that you have thought of it, that you have contacted someone, and that you will be working together. Without exaggerating, though, you don't want to give the impression that this is a collaborative effort and you are just one of many people doing something. You still need to be the leader and the PI in this project. Some novelties, these are more for the experts, so maybe I wouldn't spend too much time here, but as I said, high risk, high gain and novel methodologies were some keywords in the past. They were removed since 2024, not because ERC doesn't want high risk, high gain anymore, but because it was not clear to all communities what it was meant. So it's still ambitious, but this was a bit controversial to define it like this. And novel methodology also was removed because you don't need to develop novel methodologies to do groundbreaking science. You can also do groundbreaking science with old methodology, and that is still perfectly fine. And again, you have the questions that the experts need to answer about your proposal this time. So before it was about the PI, now it's about the proposal. So you do have them, help them answer. So try to make sure that all these things are addressed in your proposal. In B1, some, I would say, obvious suggestions, but I'll still say them. Avoid jargon. I've seen panel members that are outstanding scientists suffer because they have proposals full of acronym, never defined, written for extremely cryptic specialists. And maybe one person in the panel can understand all those acronyms, but the rest will be lost and will be disengaged. So help them get interested in your proposal. Do not oversell it and no excessive highlighting. Please do not write sentences like, I'm going to do this, which is a breakthrough outstanding in fundamental science, is going to revolutionize the whole field going beyond the state of the art. This means nothing. It means nothing and they will get upset. So remember, you're talking to scientists. You're not selling it to a company or something like this. Talk about the science. They will, so sell it properly, but do not exaggerate. Make sure there are no typos, that the references to the pages are correct, because it's not a problem if there are, but it looks sloppy. So it looks like you didn't put enough effort in doing that. And when being tired or cranky, they might think, why should I put more effort within your proposal if you didn't put enough in writing it? Of course, it's not a fair argument, but think about the human side. Show that you put effort. As I said, make it accessible also to people that are not specialists on the field. Very silly suggestion. Have tons of people proofread it. Also outside of your field. That will be crucial, believe me. And then make sure there are the figures and they're clearly visible and so on. What about B2? So this was all about B1, ready step 1. Part B2 is for filling the details. So make there is an obvious link, sure there is an obvious link. You don't want to surprise them promising things in B1 that they never appear in B2. They will feel deceived. So don't do that. Go into the details of the methodology. So really going into more specialized, if you wish, information. Provide quantitative information about the state of the art and reference all this information, and risk mitigation, as I said. And also fill in your funding ID. So the funding ID that you need to provide is to see if there is any overlapping grant or application you might have, and it's useful for them to see where you stand. Use all the full space available, is 14 pages. If you put less, so if it's shorter and they have some doubts, they might say, why didn't you say that? I mean, you still had the space, so that's no justification. Give some sort of timeline. meaning year 1, year 2, I'll do this, but if this fails, I'll still have a backup plan to do that, so the whole proposal doesn't fail. Give some, it's not mandatory, but give some sort of Gantt chart of so, and explain the involvement of the team members and collaborators. PhD 1 will be doing that, supervised by postdoc 1, and then postdoc 2 will be doing that. There will be transfer of knowledge. Show that you have thought of everything. Explain the budget when that you need to provide. Panels do not micromanage the budget, so we instruct them not to do so. They will not come to you and say, you have asked for 20,000 for publication, but I think it should be 50,000, it's too much. This is not allowed. Let's say this is not something that they do. And also they cannot micromanage the salaries. If you say that a postdoc for 1 year costs 100,000 euros, they cannot say this is too much because it depends on national law. So we have no saying in that. What they need to assess is if the resources you ask make sense. If you ask for 10 PhD students, but it doesn't look like you have enough work for 10 PhD students, they might say this is excessive. The budget cannot be sorry, negotiated. So it's not that you can come to the interview and say, okay, I'll use 2 less PhDs. Is that fine? Do you give me the grant like that? This is not an option. Some rumors there. If you do not, you ask for a lot because they will, otherwise they look cheap proposals, not fancy enough or ambitious. This doesn't make any sense because the panels assess the budget with respect to the work that you promise. If you promised an amazing thing, but assume that is purely theoretical and you just need the personnel, so it's quite cheap, it still revolutionizes the field, and that's perfectly fine. So don't overinflate it. It might play against you. And then ask for the maximum because they will cut it anyway. Again, not true, because we are pretty strict on this. They cannot cut just because they feel you are asking too much. If they need to cut, they have to pinpoint exactly what is the problem on personnel or this instrument that maybe you have 3 in your institution. We asked you in the interview and you didn't convince us that you needed this 4th one. Be aware of open access. So there is a scientific obligation. There's an obligation to make open access the papers, and you can also do the data management plan, but I will not go into the details. The message here is that you can ask for money for this. That's perfectly eligible, so don't be shy there. Now, what if you are invited to the interview? Have clear, every panel does what they consider best. They might ask you to have slides. They might not even give you a chance to give a presentation. You might have 15 minutes presentation or 5 minutes. You will get detailed information afterwards. But if you do have slides, or in any case a presentation, focus on the science and don't make a business presentation, because usually this is not well appreciated. So remember, you're talking to scientists, so go into the science. Keep the time. Most of the time you will see a timer, pretty intimidating big timer on the screen. So keep the time, because if you don't, this has repercussions on the others and you will be interrupted. Not because they are impolite, but we need to be strict there. Try to think of what you might be asked. I mean, it's pretty obvious thing, but even if you don't know the answer, try to have some, let's say, thinking out loud options. This is something that I've seen quite often. Be mindful not to talk too much or in an unfocused way, because they will have the impression that you are not focused and you're just blabbling. Give to the point, precise. Give all the information, maybe double check that they got what they wanted, but just don't go on rambling for minutes and minutes. It plays against you, because maybe there are questions that are left unanswered. Know the details of your proposal, because if they say, for example, work package 2, and you're like, what is work package 2? Is the one on the topological insulator or the one on superconductivity? It doesn't look good. So be ready to know your proposal, I would say, by heart. Your competitors as well. They might say, you know, this paper came up in Physical Review B about this from this group. Did you hear about that? Because it might be relevant. Looks bad if you didn't, but if you have new work, since submission until interview, you might have new data. Please do present it. That is quite welcome. Typical reason for the rejections. On the research project, the 2 extremes, either too narrow or too broad. Too narrow, you didn't dare enough. This is not an ERC, it's too little. Or too broad, you promised to solve everything. I don't believe it. It's too much. No incremental research, so no clear groundbreaking aspects. Too many collaborations, not really clear that you are the PI. It looks like the others will be doing most of the job. we don't have enough indications on how you plan to do it or risk management, or we are not convinced that you can do it because you didn't help us assess the feasibility. In the principal investigator part, maybe insufficient track record, so you are still not mature enough for what you promised to do, and it's not clear that you can carry out the project. The message here is that if rejected, keep trying. There are people, I swear, that got it after 7 or 8 resubmissions. And I'm not saying that you should go to 7 or 8 resubmissions. What I'm saying is that once you apply, I know you put a lot of work in preparing it, but there are 2 advantages. You do sit and think about your research for the next 5 years, and this is not something you do quite often. Second, you do get expert feedback. So this is really good for you to improve in the future. The synergy grant that I mentioned before, I will not spend time on this, but feel free to ask questions, maybe for those of you who are a bit more advanced. As I mentioned, this is 2 to 4 PIs, and one of the host institution can be outside Europe or associated countries. So again, this might be interesting for you. I just put it here as a summary that there is something more than the individual grants, but feel free to ask if you wish. And to conclude, I just put some numbers that could be interesting for you. Here we have numbers about ASEAN nationals that had an individual grant, either starting, Consolidator, or advanced. So basically they moved from an ASEAN country to member state or associated countries. And we see that Singapore is the one doing best, also with four proof of concept. We have one of these grantees without speaking, so we're very grateful for that. And we also have a synergy grant. You know, synergy, I said that one PI can be outside, and we have one in Singapore, Dr. Linfa Wang, with the project Bat Protect. So there is something moving, but of course the numbers are still limited, if you wish. And one thing that I wanted to mention that I think you might find interesting is that in the website, in ERC website, under apply for a grant, additional opportunities, I put here the link, there is something that could be relevant for you, which is the implementing arrangement. Implementing arrangement is an initiative that the ERC has established to widen the participation to countries outside your member state or associated countries, and is based on signing some agreements. At the moment, 2 agreements have been signed with Singapore and Thailand, so this might be relevant for people, for those of you based in these 2 countries. And what's the idea there? The idea there is that ERC starts a call for expression of interest among our grantees if they are willing to host a researcher from Singapore or Thailand that is paid by national funding agencies there. We do this call, we have this list, and then we send it to the funding agencies in these countries. And you can contact these funding agencies to see if you are eligible. If you are eligible, you can take initiative and contact one of these PIs because you will have the list. And if they agree, you can apply to these funding agencies. You can follow all the indications there to spend a few months up to 1 year in the lab of this PI. The advantage of this is that you do some mobility. It gives you access to a successful lab. It gives you access to the network of that PI. So maybe that not only the person, but also the network of that person is relevant. So you establish invaluable collaborations, and maybe this PI can proofread your proposal, can help you and guide you. So it gives you a hint of what life, to help you prepare your ERC grant and what life might be like if you go for the ERC. So if you have some questions, let me know. In this website that I put here, you find all the information, and there is an email you can contact to ask everything you might need. This was my last slide. I think I kept you on listening for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I do think Novi is with us, right? So I bought you some time to arrive, Novi.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much, Odeta. And Novi is here. Maybe before we have the question answer, maybe Novi, if you would like to share with us, and Dr. Odeta will have a look on the questions that we already sent it to you. Novi, are you there?
Yes, I'm having trouble with the video because the host has stopped it. So if
I
you
think
allow me.
Tatas need, yeah,
Oh,
that was the case also for me.
Yeah, no, it's you are the co-host. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Hi, everyone. So I will share my slides. I will only have few pages and try to make it as brief as possible. So yeah, so my name is Novi Quadrianto. Good morning, good afternoon, good day from anywhere that you are connecting to this webinar. I'm going to give or share experience as applicant, as awardee. And if you have some question as well, I was also acting as an evaluator at one time. So let me just start with a brief description about my path as a researcher in terms of education and career. So I was born in Jakarta, Indonesia. I got my first degree in Singapore. And then I got my second and third degree in Australia. And during that, my PhD studies, I was actually traveling to increase my networks, as what Odeta was actually emphasizing. Like, you know, networks, it's important. So I already thinking about this particular networks connection during my PhD studies. So I visited European and North American researcher. And that's like really useful actually for my research, for the funding application that I'm making, etc. And as a career, in terms of career, I started my career as a research officer back in Singapore in I2R. So whoever you from I2R connecting now, so hello. And after my PhD, my first job is actually at University of Cambridge. I got my own grants from Newton International Fellowship. So I spent 2 years in Cambridge. And then after that 2 years of my postdoc, actually, I started my faculty position at University of Sussex since 2014, and I'm still with University of Sussex until now. But start diversifying my connection as well. So from 2021, I'm actually having a lab as well, a joint lab with the Research Institute in Spain. And then from 2023, I'm actually an adjunct professor at the Monash University in Indonesia. And this is give a brief overview about my journey to an ERC grant application. So I got to know about the ERC grant in Australia in 2011. So that's what, when I'm mentioning that during my PhD studies, I was visiting several institutions. And that's the first time I heard about the ERC grant was when I was in Austria during my PhD studies. And the institute there is Institute of Science and Technology Austria. Odeta mentioning about the success rate around 10%, that IST Austria actually really an excellent institution. They have an acceptance rate actually almost close to 50%. So they are one of the most successful institution in getting ERC grant. And then that's 2011, I heard about ERC. And then in 2014, I attended ERC starting grant event at a university in London. So this is kind of like webinars that you are attending now. It was organized by the UK National Contact Point for the ERC. So that's what, you know, three years gap from first hearing it and then getting to know about what does it take to apply for ERC grant. And I didn't apply immediately. So I'm only applying actually in 2018. That's when I feel like, you know, I'm ready to make an application. So it was my first time submission. The project is called Bayesian Models and Algorithm for Fairness and Transparency. It's in short, the acronym is Bayesian GDPR. The panel that I chose is PE6, Computer Science and Informatics. And that's October 2018. And then the outcome, as Odeta mentioning as well, like, you know, there is a step 1, step 2 evaluation. The outcome of step 1 was in March 2019. And then they give like around 2 to 3 months, 2.5 months to prepare for the interview. During my time, the interview was on site in Brussels. So that's June 2019. So when I first heard about this outcome of step 1, Basically, I was almost full-time preparing for this kind of the interview to really be ready for the interview with the slides, because the panels that I was in requiring a 10 minutes presentation plus question and answer. So I was preparing the slide. I was practicing with my colleague, have a mock interview just to be prepared for that particular interview. And then the project itself started actually in April 2020, and it's still ongoing until now. And then the ERC grant actually accelerate my research plan. It allowed me to focus on groundbreaking, trustworthy machine learning research with generous budget and long-term support. As you already heard, the budget is 1.5 million for me. Long-term support, 5 years. It's really good in terms of this duration for the research funding. It's allowed me to strengthen my research collaboration with other machine learning group in the top European institutions. So my position as strategic lab leader in Beckham, Spain, in Bilbao, it's thanks to the ERC grant that allowed me to set up this kind of borderless research lab. It's also helped me to secure further European funding in the area of trustworthy machine learning. So recently, I was involved, or I'm still involved in this Tango Research Innovation Action Project. So that's funded by Horizon Europe. It's a consortium of several institutions. That's the total funding from the Horizon Europe is around 7 million. And for my group, it's actually 500,000 for a 4 years duration. And as well, I think probably Odeta also mentioned about the proof of concept. I recently secured ERC proof of concept on the topics of related to my starting grant. And the starting grant was on the Bayesian GDPR, and this proof of concept is looking into the AI projects. So some challenges I would like to share, maybe a little bit of challenges that I encountered when I tried to apply for this particular ERC grant. So of course, the first challenge is crafting innovative, high-impact research proposals, as Odeta mentioned last time during my time, it's called high-risk, high-gain proposal. So the things that I do is really I'm seeking feedback from colleagues. I have the time, so I'm planning to write that particular grant. I start early, start building the idea, start thinking about what do I want to do, what do I want to write, and get feedback from colleagues as early as possible. That's the one that is I find it very useful. And the second challenge that I encounter is how to demonstrate a track record as an early career researchers. I guess majority of you are probably in this particular states as well. So the way I try to overcome this challenge is you need to provide a strong narrative how your past grants and research output serve as strong foundation for the proposed research. So if you have a local national grants or any other grants that support the ideas that you're proposing. It's not only about the grants, but it's like the output of that particular grants that really serving as a foundation for your proposal that you're writing for the ERC grant. That is very useful, at least in my case. And then, my third problems is the biggest problem of all, actually. Balancing the ERC application process with other professional and family responsibilities. So, you need to write the proposal. You still need to take care about your kid, in my case, my daughter. But, they sacrificed a lot. My wife, my daughter sacrificed really a lot when I wrote this particular ERC grant. But for now, I can say that it's really coming back to them, because I have the time now, because the research grant is actually 5 years. It's allowed me to focus on the research and to allow me to actually have times to send my daughter to the schools. I was late actually connecting to this particular webinar because I dropped her off in the school. So, ERC grant is really accelerate your research, but also helpful for your personal things as well. So that's in my case. The next few slides, I'm going to go through very, very quickly because I think Odeta already covered this very nicely. General tips is early planning is essential. At one time, I think I saw there is this ERC classes. Probably Odeta is one of the presenters as well. It's really, really good video recording there. So have a look and listen and attend and ask questions during the ERC webinar series, which is what all of you are currently doing. Look at example of successful application. I think Odeta perhaps already mentioned as well, there is a dashboard, that specific thing for the ERC dashboard. You can check the starting grant, consolidator, advanced, proof of concept, synergy grants. You can see what is the successful project, what is the host institution. You can filter it as you wish. Got application reviewed by colleges, discuss with them as early as possible. And as well, this is the last slide of Odeta, which is very useful about this international arrangement funding programs. She correctly, or she was already putting about the Singapore and Thailand, and I was actually trying to find whether any other Asian country, ASEAN country there's, but at the moment it's only Singapore, Thailand. But also there are few university, for example, I'm giving examples, university in Germany, they have a ERC preparative fellowship that allow, postdoc to come and apply for this particular fellowship and make this university as potential host institution, for example. So have a look into that and see around. So about the research project itself, this is like, I think Odeta already covered it very nicely. Balance your vision with a strong, confident plan and a good project structure. Use data and graph, visualize your ideas. This is some of the suggestion from this UK national contact points. About the PI, I think it's like, you need to provide the evidence as it's already described. You need to allow the evaluator to have the trust in you, that you have the credibility to carry out the project and you are an excellent researcher. And try to explain why you are the right person and why you need to undertake this project at this specific moment in time. So, and with that, all the best. It's worth the effort, and you will only get acceptance if you apply. So if you don't apply, it's 100% the case, it will be rejection. But if you apply, then it's no longer 100% rejection. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Novi.
Novi, thank you. Now we come to the questions and answer sessions. We have several questions already on board, and maybe we would like to go first to Odeta and also Novi. Odeta, if you would like to address questions, please. Yeah.
I saw that you clustered them, so thanks a lot, because I saw that they were scattered, of course. So I'm sorry, because during the presentation, I could not read the chat, and many of you were mentioning there was a black blob. So I think I removed it, but too late. Sorry for that. In any case, there is a recording, and you will get the slides. So whatever you might have missed because of the black blob, you will recover it. From your questions, I realized that maybe I was not clear in how this would work for people coming from outside Europe or associated countries. So let me address the questions. Working arrangement and base requirements. So how would that work, right? You are based in Thailand and you want to apply for a starting grant. The requirement is that you need to find a host institution, so a research institute or university in an associated country or a member state. There are the lists. And you apply for that. If you get the grant, what is asked of you is that you spend at least 50% of the time, your living time, general living time in Europe or associated countries, 50%. And for starting, at least 50% of your working hours working on this project. It can be more. This commitment on working on the project can be more, but the minimum is 50%. If we go to Consolidator at Advanced, the time commitment in terms of being in Europe remains the same. If you are coming from outside Europe or associated countries, you still need to ensure that you spend 50% of your overall time in Europe, but the minimum requirement of the project goes lower. because ones expect that you might have more grants, more responsibilities. So for Consolidator it's 40%, for advanced it's 30%. How does this translate in practice? From Thailand, you apply to a host institution. Most probably what you're expected to do is that you establish your group there. One does not expect you to spend 100% of the time there, but at least 50%, and in any case to ensure that you can coordinate the PhD, the postdocs, and so on. Whether this translates in you moving to Europe physically to live, this is not for us to say. Maybe you can find arrangements so that you spend 3 months here, 3 months there, and 3 months whatever. But you are asked to spend at least 50% of your time in Europe. And I think this was, I didn't make it quite clear, so apologies for that if it created confusion. Then there were some questions on the PhD and who can apply. So some people were asking, can master students apply? Or PhD students that still didn't get their doctorate? You need to have a PhD, and for the lowest limit, the starting grant, you need to be at least 2 years after the PhD date. So as someone was correctly saying, 2 years of postdoc experience. Not that you need to have postdoc experience, but at least 2 years after the PhD date. And the way this is calculated is that you need to take the date of your award of the PhD and compare it versus the 1st of January of the year of the call. So for starting 25 will be 1st of January 2025, and you compare it versus the date of your PhD. I always make a lot of mistakes in the calculations, so there are a lot of calculators online. You look ERC PhD date calculator and you write there. And if you want to be extra careful, you write to that email address I told you and you say, my date is this, I want to apply to this, is this fine? Just to be extra safe. I didn't insist on that because you can find the info. Eligibility can be extended. Some of you were asking, if you had a maternity leave, or let me rephrase it, if you are a woman and had kids before, after your PhD, doesn't matter, you can get automatically 18 months extra extension on your eligibility window. We know how much having a kid can be disruptive, so you get automatically 18 months. For men, you get as an extension the time that you actually took as a parental leave. So you just need to show it, but if you took paternity leave of 1 year, you get 1 year extra. Okay, and then there are other reasons, medical training, military service, and so on. So this can make this window larger. Seniority requirement for advanced grant. This I mentioned, you need to be able to prove that you'd had at least 10 years of significant achievement in research. So I would say if you can ensure this 10 years of significant achievement, let's say training students, the new generation of professors and doing some relevant research, that would be good enough. And Novi, sorry, I didn't interrupt, but feel free to jump in whenever you want. So I just keep talking, but feel free to interrupt me. For synergy, as I mentioned, it is one of these collaborative grants from 2 to minimum 2, maximum 4 principal investigators. That means minimum 2, maximum 4 host institutions. On top of that, it can be partners and team members, so it can be larger, but technically these are the PIs. And maximum 1 out of this group can be from outside EU. And this means that you wouldn't need to respect those requirements of 50% time in Europe. So you can spend 100% time in the ASEAN country, in the ASEAN institution, and still get the money. And at some point, there was another question, was not in the cluster, like, how does it work? Like for any other ERC grant, when you prepare the proposal, you do the budget breakdown and you say the ASEAN institution will have 4 PhD, 2 postdocs, the salary of the PI, plus a dilution fridge, plus this and that. So I need 4 million euros. That money will go to the ASEAN institution in that breakdown. And I didn't mention that, but every institution gets 25% overhead. So there are the money that goes to the PI for the things they asked, and then there is a 25% that is included in this maximum 1.5 million that goes to the host institution itself. And in this case, entirely to the ASEAN institution. Now there is a question, a requirement of having a host institution in EU or possibility of applying from non-EU countries like India. You can apply from non-EU countries, meaning as a non-EU national, but you need to apply with a member state or affiliated country host institution that agrees to take you on board, ensuring this 50% time in Europe and 50% for starting working on the project. So I think this question hopefully is clarified, but feel free to ask more. Yes, for individual submission, you need to find host institution or university. Usually this maybe could be driven by your collaborators, or it can be anybody. So it's really up to you to choose. And I think someone was asking if KU Leuven is eligible. I live in Leuven actually, and that's obviously it's perfectly eligible. I think they have a quite strong research office, so just reach out. Platform for facilitating host matching, unfortunately not. And the reason is also that ERC cannot intervene in guiding the process, right? Because it would be like some sort of conflict of interest. But what Novi was saying, there is the dashboard. I would say go there and look who is closest to you in terms of science. If you want to have a feedback on the implementing arrangement, let's say, so someone from whom you can learn. Or you can see universities that do something similar to what you do, or maybe there is a clean room and so on. So the data are there, but you need to find a clever way to consult them. Access to successful grant templates. Empty templates, yes. Successful grant templates, unfortunately not, because again, they don't belong to us. These belong to the PIs. So I would say that if you do this sort of networking, you can ask if you have enough confidence and knowledge with these people, if they are open to share their application, so you can have an idea. But it cannot be ERC sending it around because it's confidential data, at least on our side. If the PI themselves want to share it, of course, is more than welcome. Time frame for achievement, whether the evaluation of scientific achievement starts after PhD graduation or includes achievement during the PhD. You can also show achievement during the PhD. The after PhD is in terms of eligibility. But if you say during my PhD I started this and I make this breakthrough discovery, it's perfectly fine, of course. There wouldn't be a problem. What else? A maturity and track record. Experience in supervising doctoral students, is it relevant? So for starting and Consolidator, this is not a requirement. So it's not that if you don't have it, you are punished. But of course, you can imagine that in that demonstrating research achievement and giving a view of you as a PI, it helps. So the PIs can take it into account in the context, but cannot penalize you for not having it. While for advanced grantees, it plays more role because fostering the new generation of scientists is something that is considered in the evaluation. I try to go quickly because we are already 2 minutes over time. I don't mind staying more, but I know you might be busy. We'll get the recording. Yes, now I'll just go with what you have written. Let's see. Do ERC grant on business-related projects? We have, so the whole social, I would say social science, social sciences and humanities, there is economy, mobility, cities, and so on. So for sure, there is also business. I invite you to check the proposals funded there because I'm sure you can find more. I cannot give you concrete examples because it's a bit more off with respect to my expertise, but for sure you can find. Anyways, one has to work for you or member state affiliation. Yes, but you can keep double affiliation. So if you do an individual grant, so not a synergy, but individual grant, many people keep a double affiliation. So they spend 50% of the time in Europe with a new host institution and 50% in ASEAN. Three question, can we apply for ERC implementing arrangement during postdoc? This is a very good question, and my honest answer is that I don't know, because this is a small call that some colleagues handled. So I would really encourage you to. I don't want to give you a wrong answer, so I would encourage you to write to the function, to the email in the implementing arrangement link that I put, because I would not expect a limit in terms of PhD there. But again, I don't want to give you false information. How much quota is allocated to social sciences field? It depends on submission. As I said, budget is distributed based on submission. If there are more proposals, there is more money going there. If there are less, there is less money. With the starting grant application from ASEAN countries be assessed together, Yes, because it doesn't matter the nationality. So the fact that it's an ASEAN proposal means only that the PI is located currently in an ASEAN country or has an ASEAN nationality, but that is an information that doesn't matter at all for the evaluation. So they wouldn't even notice, I would say. Okay. Is it possible for an applicant to specify names of PI who may not be supportive? Yes, you can put up to 3 objected reviewers. So people, this information is only visible to us working in ERC. These are people that you don't want that they read your proposal. Maybe there is a rivalry or whatever. And I would say we always try to respect this unless, but in my experience in 8 years, it never happened, unless in our panel, there's not enough expertise, that there is only that people that could understand something. So we have to do a whole procedure to not respect your wish. But I would say, as far as I know, it maybe never happened. Can University of Malaysia be the host only in synergy? As I said, otherwise you will need to have a host in the EU or member state or associated countries. Then there is I think a question for Novi, so maybe I will leave it to him, which is how do you negotiate, I guess this is for Novi, but how do you negotiate the best condition of work with the host institution in order to plan your research and work well? Tricky question.
Indeed, yes, a tricky question. I mean, like, it's the art of negotiation, basically. Right? I mean, you need to know what they propose, and and then you need to know what is best for you. And then basically, the thing is, if you don't ask, you don't get it, and that's the only things.
Yeah.
And again, keep in mind they will get 25% of the money, so it's in their best interest to keep you happy. Let me put it like that. I think we reached the end of the questions with only 7 minutes over time.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much, Odeta and also Novi, for being with us today and also helping our researcher community to better navigate through the program requirements and submission process. Maybe if you have a short sentence, 1-2 short sentence from Odeta and Novi to close our session today.
Oh, I was not prepared for this. This is a tricky question. No, I think Novi said it very well. If you don't try, it's 100% failure. If you try, it gets better. So, and in the process, you learn a lot by preparing. I would say it's a win-win situation. So don't be shy.
Okay, thank you very much, Novi.
For me, it's all the best. Looking forward to getting application from the ASEAN.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes our session today, and success for you all. Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Thank you.